Okay, Sunday quarterback time. Huskers now 0-4. It's a losing streak's now 8. But this one felt a little bit different, didn't it? After the game, that's about as emotional as we've seen Scott Frost since he's taken over here.
Yeah, it's just a mounting of frustrations for Scott Frost between penalties, missed opportunities, losing, all things that when he took this job, I just don't think any of this he thought was how it was going to happen. And he cares about Nebraska football so much. He's from this state. His dad played here. His mom was a coach here. He's got so much care for this place, this job, and you could just feel that when he talked. We saw Mike Riley get up there and talk about a lot of losses, and you never once had that, like, man, this guy really is hurt by this. And you could tell he was crying for, not help, but just saying, you know what, I care about you guys. I care about this program, this state, and this is going to get right. And
he was asked about what happened and how often do you see new things pop up, and did you think it was that bad? And he said that he was surprised that new stuff comes up almost weekly, that he didn't realize how bad it was when he took over.
Yeah, and when losing happens, that's when the roaches come out, they say. That's when things that you weren't expecting to see come out. And that's why when you evaluate a team in August, it's really hard to know, because everybody around America is optimistic and happy in August. They can do no wrong. You don't really learn about a team until the bullets are live and you start losing some games. And we're learning about this team, just some of the mental things, some of the discipline things. And Scott Frost's not happy about it. And it's really frustrating when you can't run a punt return without getting a penalty. You can't run a kick return without getting a penalty. Just stuff that should not be happening. You get holding calls on key runs and defensive holdings on an interception. I mean, you can go down the list of things. You get a sack that should have forced a punt. Well, your defensive end hits the quarterback in the head with his hand, which is a penalty, unfortunately, and you don't get the ball back. And that would have been an opportunity for Nebraska to get the ball to cut the game into 7 points. And, just several things like that.
11 penalties on Saturday. That gives them 42 for the season in 4 games. Let's talk about what went right. Divino Zigbo, that was his best game as a Husker.
Yeah, Divino Zigbo really played like a guy that wanted to be out there. Maurice Washington sat out the game because he didn't practice all week. Greg Bell just has not given them that spark. And I think it's a difference of, you've got a guy that wants to do it, a guy that has been here now 4 years, and he's running like that, a guy that's invested 4 years in Nebraska football. Adrian Martinez, you can see the promise. J.D. Spielman, Stanley Morgan, they made their plays. At times, I thought the offensive line did a nice job. I mean, they were getting a push, but there's so many mistakes. We joked about this, Andy. Nebraska has outgained the opponent 3 times this year, and they've lost all three of those games. Well, you know why? Poor field position, penalties, special teams, all those things have led to Nebraska having much longer fields, which makes it a lot harder to win.
Yeah, the turnover margin is now at -6. Defensively, they did some good things, especially down the stretch. That fourth quarter, they gave the offense 3 different opportunities to get the ball back and make it a game. So the defense at times played well.
The only thing I would say is they were only able to get 1 sack on David
didn't
Blau.
get much of a rush.
And that had to be different. They needed to get more sacks. Eric Shenander's defense feeds off sacks. And I don't know if it was, I don't think they were bringing as much heat as far as big blitzes, because Blau is really good at running away and diagnosing, and Purdue had a lot of playmakers. But he tested this defense a lot deep, and Nebraska withstood a lot of those shots. I mean, then they would have that breakdown or two, and that was the hard thing to watch with the pass defense. They do 2 things right, then they'd give a 50-yard play down the field because a guy had a coverage bust.
All right, where does this team go from here? Well, they go to Madison, but where do we go forward? Because this is not a this is going to be a tough one at Wisconsin.
Yeah, you're 0-4, first time since the 40s, 8-game losing streak, worst in program history. You haven't won a home game in over 370 days. You haven't won a football game as a program in nearly a year. So there's a lot that's tough right now, and Northwestern is going to be a tough game. It's 11 a.m. kick. So it's a favorable environment for a road team. It's a game Nebraska should think they can still go in and win that game down the road. But then obviously next weekend is a night game in Madison, and we know what that place is like at night.
Well, they brought it this week in terms of effort and energy level. They have to clean up the stuff, obviously, but you never know. This is why you play the football games. Northwestern played Michigan really tough on Saturday, so you just never can tell. But the Huskers will take their show on the road at 0-4, taking on the Wisconsin Badgers coming off a bye week. That game is next Saturday at 6:30. It will be telecast on the Big Ten Network.